As Senator Rafferty just said, Act 33 of 2016 is a victory for roadway safety across the Commonwealth. The expanded use of ignition interlocks is an issue now that has been considered in the General Assembly for many years now. And Senator Rafferty has led that charge for the past three of the House session, 6 years at least. And he's tirelessly worked with our colleagues in both the Senate and the House to ultimately bring us here today, to recognize the importance of this legislation becoming law. I cannot understate how important this legislation is. The use of ignition interlocks is unquestionably going to save lives and make our roadways safer here in the Commonwealth. Driving under the influence is a reckless crime, one that endangers all of the other fellow drivers on the highway and far too often ends in senseless tragedies. In Lancaster County, my home county, DUIs are roughly 1/3 of all the criminal cases handled in the Court of Common Pleas. Think about that. 1 in every 3 crimes in my home county is someone driving drunk. Unfortunately, those who exercise poor judgment and get behind the wheel after drinking often commit the crime on numerous occasions before they're even caught and prosecuted. But it doesn't stop there. A vast number of those who are sentenced for driving under the influence actually are going to do it again. Under current Pennsylvania law, most first-time DUI offenders will receive a license suspension, which too often, unfortunately, is not enough to keep them from getting behind the wheel. Offenders still have to live their lives, go to work, and raise a family. Act 33 changes this. Rather than a simple license suspension, it requires first-time offenders to use the ignition interlock system. It allows them to continue living their lives while ensuring they are driving safely and not under the influence of alcohol. The price to install and maintain an ignition interlock device is well worth the price to prevent future tragedy and for an offender also to continue their lives. Most importantly, it provides surety when they drive that they are sober. Act 33 is a comprehensive update to Pennsylvania's DUI laws, addressing a number of issues, including charges of tampering with an ignition interlock device, ensuring that any vehicle operated by someone with an ignition interlock limited license will only use a vehicle properly equipped with that interlock device, and clarifies a number of other technical issues with our DUI laws. As the prime sponsor in the House, it has truly been an honor to be part of a team effort to make this possible, and it truly has been a team effort. As Senator Rafferty said, I want to thank our House Transportation Committee Chairman, Representative John Taylor, and Representative Bill Keller. And I want to reach out to the House Judiciary Committee Chairman also, Ron Marsico and Joe Petrarca, for working together to create the Joint DUI Task Force, whose members in the House worked diligently to consider this legislation. This task force was joined by my colleague who's standing behind me today, Representative Jim Marshall. I wanted to thank him, and I wanted to thank my other members who are standing behind me for their role in helping to move this legislation forward in the House. And last but not least, I have to thank Chris and Susan Demko and for all the work they've did, Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Parents Against Impaired Driving, for their steadfast advocacy on this issue. Without the efforts of Chris and Susan, and there were other families here, other parents, but I will say they live pretty close to my office, and their daughter was killed in a senseless tragedy about a mile from my office. I remember that day. I remember it vividly. I also remember the Demkos writing to the newspaper, and I remembered vowing to do everything that I possibly could to see whether we can do something to get this legislation passed. And I do want to give a shout out too to my senator in my district, Senator Smucker, because Lloyd was very involved in this too, and I reached out to him, and as I said, we all worked together to move this forward. Once again, I do want to thank Senator Rafferty. He was tenacious in moving this forward. It has taken years. I think people know here in Harrisburg sometimes things can take a long time to get done, but this is something that needed to get done. And with his unwavering leadership, we were able to get this passed. I will say that while we're discussing Act 33 today, we also need to remember that there's always more that we can do to combat drunk driving and impaired driving here in the Commonwealth. And I'm making it a promise today that I'm going to continue to fight for reforms and to look for legislation that we can do to pass in the Commonwealth to strengthen our DUIs. Thank you very much all for being here.